You wake up, you check your phone, you commute, you work 8 hours, maybe 9. You come home exhausted. You collapse on the couch and think, at least I'm not living in a cave. But the real answer is far stranger. For most of human history, a full day of survival took about 15 hours. Not the 60-plus hours you clock now between work and errands and scrolling. 15. And the rest of the time was yours. Sound impossible. It gets stranger. In the 1960s, an anthropologist named Marshall Solins looked at data from hunter-gatherer societies and came to a conclusion that stunned the academic world. He called it the original affluent society. Not affluent because they had more stuff. Affluent because they wanted less. Your ancestors weren't scraping by in constant desperation. Many of them worked less than you do. Much less. Picture a stick figure crouched by a fire, tools scattered nearby, sun high overhead. He is not panicked. He is not rushing. He finished his work hours ago. How is that possible? Because survival for most of human history was not about accumulation. It was about sufficiency. You hunted an animal, gathered some roots, found some fruit. Once you had enough for the day, you stopped. There was no reason to keep going. Nothing to save up for. No next quarter to prepare for. No mortgage. Your modern brain recoils at this. It sounds lazy. It sounds primitive. But consider what your ancestors did with the other 9 or 10 hours in their day. They talked. They told stories. They rested. They played with their children. They slept when they were tired, not when an alarm told them to. This is where things get uncomfortable for you, because the modern world convinced you that busyness equals virtue, that rest is something you earn only after work is finished. But for the vast majority of the roughly 300,000 years modern humans have existed, this idea did not exist at all. In the 21st century, an anthropologist named James Sussman spent years living among the rude Honsi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last groups on Earth to have lived largely as hunter-gatherers within living memory. He found something almost identical to what Solins had described decades earlier. People who worked around 15 hours a week to meet their material needs. People who spent enormous amounts of time simply being present with each other. 15 hours a week, not a day. A week. Now picture your own week. Picture the emails, the meetings, the 40, 50, 60 hours you give away before you even get to live. What happened? Agriculture happened. About 12,000 years ago, humans began settling down, planting crops, storing grain. And for the first time, there was something to protect, something to grow, something that could run out. Farming created surplus, and surplus created a brand new problem your hunter-gatherer ancestors never had to think about. How do you make sure you have enough? Not just for today, but for next season, next year, forever. This is the moment your relationship with time broke, because once you can store food, you can also lose it. Once you can accumulate wealth, you can also fall behind. Suddenly, there is a reason to work past the point of sufficiency. Suddenly, more is always better, because more is safety against an uncertain future. Your brain still carries this anxiety today. Except now it isn't about grain in a storehouse. It's about a number in a bank account. A promotion. A follower count. Here's the twist almost nobody expects. You might assume hunter-gatherers were shorter-lived, sicklier, more miserable than farmers who came after them. In some ways, that's true. Life expectancy was harsh. Disease and injury were real threats. But researcher Herman Ponzer, who has spent years measuring the daily energy expenditure of the Hadza people in Tanzania, found something the fitness industry does not want you to hear. Hadza hunter-gatherers, despite walking for miles and hunting and gathering all day, burn roughly the same total calories as a sedentary office worker in New York or London. Wait, what? Their bodies adapted. Their metabolisms adjusted to output steady, sustainable energy rather than allow constant caloric burn, which means the image of the caveman as a lean, hyperactive survival machine, gasping and grinding every hour of daylight, isn't quite right either. Their bodies were efficient, calm, built for endurance, not exhaustion. So which is it? Were your ancestors idle or industrious, restful or relentless? The answer is both and neither, because those categories are modern inventions. Your ancestors didn't divide life into work and leisure. There was no clock to punch. There was just the day and what the day required. And then whatever was left. Think about that the next time your calendar tells you productivity is your worth, because somewhere between the first stored grain and the first factory whistle, your species invented an idea that never existed before. That time not spent producing something is time wasted. Your hunter-gatherer ancestors would find this idea bizarre, possibly even a little sad. They didn't fill their extra hours with anxiety about what they weren't doing. They filled them with each other. Storytelling around a fire wasn't entertainment in the way you think of it now. It was how information survived. How children learned who they were, where their people came from, what dangers to watch for. It was medicine for loneliness before anyone had a word for loneliness. You still crave this. It's why silence after a long day of screens feels unbearable, and a real conversation with someone who knows you feels like coming up for air. Somewhere inside you, past every deadline and notification, there is still a stick figure crouched by a fire who finished his work hours ago and has nothing left to do but exist with the people he loves. You didn't lose that person. You just buried him under 15,000 years of surplus and grain stores and the quiet fear that if you stop, everything falls apart. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe the strangest thing your ancestors ever knew wasn't how to hunt or start a fire or track an animal for 3 days across open land. Maybe it was simply this: knowing when enough was enough. You wake up, you check your phone, you commute, you work 8 hours, maybe 9, but somewhere back at the beginning of it all, someone just like you finished their work by noon and spent the rest of the day being alive.